Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet us over here on YouTube. Meet Robert William Shalom, my brother. Hello again, Star Ace. Everybody, please like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. I need you to become my friend over there. That's the only page where I can accept friends, everybody. The only page. The other pages, they kick you off. I only have one other page. But I have to keep that open in order to facilitate this other page that gets everybody in. So please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. And then on X, that's right, at Santita J. See how easy that is? Let's talk about this dark money. Let's talk about it because something strange is happening. You've got 50 mega donors who have said, look, we got $1.5 billion in this campaign. What do they expect for that $1.5 billion? What does Peter Thiel want from Donald Trump and JD Vance? Think about that. But also, let's look at APAC. They said we've already spent $100 million taking out these Democrats. What are the Democrats? What is their answer to it? Do they have $100 million that they've been raising? Because we sure have seen these donors raising all this cane, and they've been raising all this money. They raised $500 million with Kamala already. You mean to tell me you can't come up with $100 million to keep some incumbents safe? But all of this is it's not getting us to talk about a floor beneath which no human being should fall. And we're going to talk with you, Texas State Representative Reynolds, after Jim Narekis of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting leaves us, because I want to know what dark money in a campaign looks like. Because, see, they're coming after you. That's Jamal Bowman. That's Cori Bush. But they're coming after people in the states, too, because there's so much power in the state legislatures, right? And now in cities and in states, people are supporting the BDS movement, the boycott divestment movement. They are doing that. And now you've got ceasefire resolutions that are being passed by cities and towns and hamlets all over the country. At the same time, you've got other entities that are trying to call calls against Zionism anti-Semitic. So I mean, there's a lot going on. So there's a lot of dark money. I guess that's my point. Everywhere. So what are we going to do about it? Well, particularly in these campaigns. Jim Narekis affair, I'm always reading you. And so when Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and of course I get extra, which I absolutely love, and I want everyone to please support this media so that you can get some of the most insightful analysis of corporate media and quite frankly of media that exists in this space today. What is going on with the dark money, and how is it being reported by corporate media? Well, first of all, what is dark money?
Dark money is campaign contributions that are not required to disclose their origin. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of an echo here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
If I seem a little distracted, that's much better. It's money spent on campaigns where the origin of that money does not have to be disclosed. There's different rules for different kinds of organizations that are set up to collect and spend money on campaigns. And since the Supreme Court ruled basically that money is speech, and that to restrict campaign spending is a violation of the First Amendment, to tell a billionaire that they can't spend as much as they want to influence the course of a campaign is interfering with that billionaire's speech, and so it's not allowed. And there's ways that the billionaires can spend money so you know that it's coming from that billionaire, and there's other ways where you have no idea where that money is coming from. The organization is not required to say where they get their money from. It just shows up, and the only way you can tell that money exists is that you see the ads being run on for or against some candidate, and very often the issue that the ads are running about is not the issue that the billionaire cares about. It's an issue that like you were talking about AIPAC taking out Congress members. Those ads were not about Israel. They were not having a debate about whether we should be supporting the slaughter in Gaza or not. They were talking about issues that were completely irrelevant to them, but that they thought would be useful in taking out people who, in their point of view, were voting the wrong way on Israel. And so there's all this money that has a real effect on the national level, on the state level, on the local level. And very often you don't know where it comes from. In many cases, more money is being spent by these anonymous outside groups than is being spent by the candidates themselves on the race. So the anonymous wealthy people are having more impact in terms of campaign dollars than the people who are actually running for office. And that's a strange and troubling situation if you are interested in democracy.
So it seems that they've become emboldened in this 2024 cycle. I mean, they're announcing Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. I mean, and look, you're down in Texas where everything is bigger and better and badder and deafer in Texas. I mean, and they're not just looking at the presidential races, Jim Narakis.
No.
And the Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds is going to speak to that too, because they're targeting people down ballot. They're going from the top all the way to the bottom. These people have a plan to control all levels of government. This is what David Daley in his book Rat F talked about. When they saw that Barack Obama won in 2008, they said, seeing all the tears, glad you have the emotion, but you know what we're going to do? You all can have that. What we're going to do is take over the states and the counties and the cities and the towns and the hamlets, and we're going to clog up all these veins and arteries in the United States, and we're going to control the country. And we lost more than 1,000 seats in the Obama years. Well, I mean, we were protective of President Obama, and we should have been. But what we were protective of him, but we were not protective of them, the rest of us. I don't want to see us make that same mistake because we haven't recovered those 1,000 plus seats, and you see it. And now you're seeing it. Now you're seeing all. I mean, and I think that was one of the things that unsettled me about how Biden was displaced, because you had these donors who came out and they said he's got to go. And while I did not want him to stay, I was also sensitive to the fact, Representative Reynolds, and you were a delegate to the convention, that 14 million people voted for him. Yeah, was the process fair? No. Should there have been a pathway that would have been open to a Robert Kennedy? Absolutely. I didn't say you had to like him, but you didn't need to obstruct him. Cornel West said, forget about this. I'm not going to even touch this, because what's the point? And so I'm just saying, but seeing the donors, basically they were able to trump, no pun intended, 14 million people in a republic that has democratic leanings. I mean, it was as if they never voted. And so I understood what Maxine Waters, I understood her pushback when she said, no, y'all can't do this. This is not the way this is supposed to happen. But I feel like it's a spirit that's out here, Jim Narrative.
Yeah.
Do you think, am I wrong here?
Well, I will point out that obviously polling is not the same as voting. But in polling, you had Democrats expressing a very strong opinion that they would like a different candidate in 2024 than Joe Biden.
I said that at the beginning, but no one listened to us. Right.
It was designed to be a coronation. They made it clear that this is going to be run in a way that the person in power is going to stay in power. And then after doing this, the powers that be realized that they had picked a losing horse. The person that they railroaded into the nomination was someone who did not really have the capacities to run a campaign. And just looking at Biden versus Harris and how they campaign, you see what just simply having a person who is able to do the kind of the energetic efforts that are required to carry on a presidential campaign makes a huge difference in how people respond to it. And so it was clearly an undemocratic way of picking the nominee, but it was an undemocratic way of replacing one undemocratic decision with another undemocratic decision. And I think the second undemocratic decision is evidently more popular with the actual people than the first one.
You know what? Look, I'm glad
that's the world we live in.
It's the world that we live in. I just want us to be mindful of that, because you can't unring that bell.
Yeah.
And we've got to be very, very careful about it's not just what you do, it's how you do it. Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want this to happen again. And that's what makes me uneasy. And that's what
Sure.
so then to me, so it's consistent for us to have this untraceable money. That is, because what's the difference, Jim?
Yeah. And I do think that awareness on the part of the public is so important. And that's why we live in a wealthy country with vast inequality and ostensibly democratic political system. And how does that maintain itself? How do you have so much inequality when you have the ability to vote for the people who set the power, set the rules for the country? And perhaps the biggest way that inequality is maintained is through inequality of information. That people don't know how the government works, don't know how the rules are made, and so don't have the ability to intervene in them to make the rules more favorable for the regular people. And that's why shows like yours are so important. Why it's so important for corporate media to do a better job, because they have a real conflict of interest here, because they are the prime beneficiaries of this dark money spending. It's spent on advertising, and much of the advertising goes directly into their pockets. So they have very little incentive to bite the hand that's feeding them.
But that's part of the reason we got Trump, right?
Yeah.
They just kept they did things that I had never seen before. Jim Narakis and Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. They would let him call into the Today Show. I've never heard. They would let him call into the morning shows on network television. He didn't even have to be there. And it's more than ratings. I just felt that a corporate decision had been made that this was the guy. And Hillary Clinton, all I heard every other minute was how she was hated. And there we had it.
Yeah, it's certainly, at the very least, there was a decision made that Trump was acceptable to the people who own the media, that they were not worried about this guy getting in because, frankly, he was promising to cut their taxes. It was not something that they were losing a lot of sleep over. If it had been, someone like Bernie Sanders or like your father, having the same kind of surge in popularity, that would have made the people who run the media super nervous.
They did, and they shut them down.
Yeah. No, I don't have to explain this history to you. Given that corporate media is unlikely to do a great job of identifying the people who are behind this anonymous dark money and having an impact on on our political culture. I think that people need to develop an immune system to this kind of billionaire intervention into our politics. And the most important thing, when you see a lot of ads being run for a candidate, the first thing you should think is, why are rich people so excited about this candidate? You know, like when you see ads, you have to think someone's paying for these ads. And tune out the message. Don't, ads are not a great way to get information about political candidates in the first place. But when you see ad after ad attacking some candidate, particularly attacking a progressive candidate who is trying to challenge people who are wealthy and powerful, you have to ask yourself, why am I seeing all this, and where's the money coming from? And in many cases, you can't know, because the system is set up to keep these donations secret. There's literally no way to find out where the money's coming from. But when you are seeing these attacks, it should put you on guard and make you think, I need to seek out other sources of information about this race, because obviously people think it's an important race. And obviously they think that if we knew who was giving this money, we might have a different impression of what's going on here. And so you have to raise your level of skepticism about races on the national level, on the state level, and on the local level. School boards are an important part of this process, where school board elections, which are very low information, not many people show up for school board elections. People tend to not know very much about who's running, but millions of dollars are going into these races on a local level, and just often you get far more information, far more exposures to. I hesitate to call it information, because that treats it like it's actual facts, but you're going to hear much more about a local race from people spending money to influence your thinking than you are from a journalist whose job it is to actually explain what the actual issues are. And so just be wary of advertising as a way of getting information about elections, because it's designed to manipulate you.
Well, many of us don't even think about the fact. I realize we have a few minutes here, and I do not want Janine Jackson, of course, who along
Thank you.
with you run FAIR. And indeed, she's a brilliant journalist for whom I have so much admiration and respect. I think
Thank you.
You're one of these great power couples, and I think because you have so much integrity, and you could be making a lot of money doing a lot of other things, and yet what you're trying to do is help us to understand really how the system works, and that's what Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. We'll get into this when Jim Norekas leaves, but I think that's when we see that it's heartbreaking, and you don't quite know what to do with the information, because watching the sausage get made, you didn't realize they put hooves in there, and snout and tails and everything, and you go, oh no, but it tastes so good. Yep, they sure do. But no, this is how it really gets made.
Yeah.
And the fact that we had Citizens United, which really opened up the process, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain that and what's happening now with these laws? Because they're now passing laws that, as fairness and accuracy in reporting, as Janine Jackson's fantastic interview really helped us to see, that dark money is getting even darker. It's getting harder to trace it.
Yeah. There's a trend now of laws being introduced to try to make it illegal to reveal who is donating money to, like it's a secret that the public should not be allowed to know who it is that is influencing their elections, which is nuts, I think. But Citizens United was the Supreme Court ruling that said money is speech. The government does not have the ability to say that a billionaire can't dump as much as other money. into an election as they want to. This is a self-fulfilling system in that the system of dark money has helped to produce the right-wing Supreme Court majority that says that money is speech, and that you can't do anything to stop billionaires from exercising their power over elections. And in fact, Leonard Leo, who is credited with of the Federalist Society, is credited with engineering he's helped select the Supreme Court justices that have created the 6-3 right-wing majority on the Supreme Court now. He was given a contribution by a Chicago billionaire who gave him his whole company. He donated his entire corporation to Leonard Leo. The corporation was sold for $1.6 billion, which now becomes a slush fund for the guy who has made the right-wing majority on the Supreme Court, in order to keep going, influencing not only the Senate and the House of Representatives, but state offices, state attorney generals, who are incredibly important because state attorney generals are the people who get to say who won the election and who didn't. And
the
so,
prosecutors, right?
Yeah, right.
What cases come, how people, I mean,
on every level.
Let me ask you this. Is it really so crazy that these donors don't want to be known? I mean, what is it? How are they advantaged by remaining or by becoming anonymous?
Well, clearly, if you knew where the money was coming from, you would have the voters would have a different impression of what was going on. If you knew who was behind these ads, you would read the ads differently, and that's the only reason why they need to be anonymous. It's because it's not these people are billionaires. They live on gated communities, in some cases on their own private islands. They're not like worried about people ringing their doorbell if they get their name in the paper. They are worried that their influence will not be as great if people know who is influencing them.
Well, before you go, because I want Janine to still love me forever. What do you want us to know? What are we missing here? Because many of us didn't know about this corporation being sold, so that this man gets more than $1.5 billion.
Yes.
To change the Supreme Court and because he's doing more than that, right?
Yeah. No, I think he's pretty satisfied with the Supreme Court he has now. He's now working on other levels, and particularly the if you can control state houses, I think you'll get into this in the next segment. If you can control state houses, then you can control national elections, because elections are run at a state-by-state level. And there's a theory that Republicans are advancing that state legislators have total control over elections. That there's no way to if they say, oh, actually, this person who didn't seem like they got that many votes, they actually won the election. There's a Republican legal theory that you can't contradict that is the final say, and you just have to accept their say so as who won the election. And if this theory becomes accepted by the Supreme Court, which is not a far-fetched possibility, that is really like the surest route to an end to free elections in this country, is to have state legislatures be able to determine the election ad hoc. It's kind of over then.
Well, I mean, so what's the path forward? Just very quickly.
The path forward is educating ourselves as voters, and inoculating ourselves against the manipulation that we're going to be getting from advertising. People like to think that they are smarter than the advertisements, that they're not going to fall for the tricks that advertisers have. Advertisers are they're good at their jobs. They know what they're doing, and it's very often the propaganda that you don't notice that gets you and convinces you to vote against your interests.
And that is what's happening every day. And it is a it is an unbelievably well funded effort, and we're seeing it all over the place. And it's not just the right wingers are doing it. Quite frankly, I am appalled when I see it happening from either direction, because it's anti-democratic,
Yeah.
and it violates and it undermines the republic. Remember, Benjamin Franklin was asked after he exited the Constitutional Convention, and this is not legend. This actually had happened. A woman shouted from the crowd. She's been identified. I'm going to pull up her name. She said, "Sir, what kind of government have you given us?" He said, without skipping a beat, "A republic if you can keep it."
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jim Narakis of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, we're on the precipice. I want to thank you so much. My love to Janine Jackson. She's not a cousin, but at least no. There you go. She's so brilliant. Let some of it rub off on me, please. Of course, everybody, please give Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. They need your support because they are supporting you. They're letting you know what's happening. ProPublica is the entity that gave us this report on Leonard Leo, that shows that this Chicago businessman turned his $1.6 billion over to Leonard Leo and said, "Have at it. Change America."
Yeah.
That's what he did. Jim Narakis, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just very quickly, what's your next podcast about?
It's about the grocery store mergers that will create. If this merger goes through, we'll have two companies owning 70% of all grocery stores in the country.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want you to come back and talk about that, because talk about price controls, price gouging.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Jim Narakis, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, everybody. Sending you so much love.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, we've given you a whole lot to chew on, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. I told you, I had a feeling when I spoke with you. I said, no, I want you to comment on this, because many of us, this is from the ProPublica article. I don't want to mispronounce this gentleman's name, but I will. I'm going to read the article, but I'm going to just refer to him by name. And the headline from ProPublica is how a secretive billionaire handed his fortune to the architect of the right-wing takeover of the courts, and the largest known political advocacy donation in U.S. history. Industrialist, I think it's Said, funded a new group run by Federalist Society co-chair Leonard Leo, who guided Trump's Supreme Court picks and helped end federal abortion rights. The article begins as follows. An elderly, ultra-secretive Chicago businessman has given the largest known donation to a political advocacy group in U.S. history worth $1.6 billion. This is what we're up against, right? And the recipient is one of the prime architects of conservatives' efforts to reshape the American judicial system. This man is 90 years old. He's a manufacturing magnate, and you spell his name Barre, the last name Seid. And he gave the massive sum to a nonprofit run by Leonard Leo. There are lots of articles on Leonard Leo. He's he's a right wing. He's right wing in his politics, and he has. People are looking at what he's done to reshape the Supreme Court, because he really has guided the picks of, quite frankly, the conservative picks over the past more than a decade. But it's more than that. They are looking down ballot, everybody. They're looking to control the states, because remember, there's a balance between the states' rights and federalism. That's always been the fight, right? And this is where we are. So what do you make of this? I mean, this $1.6 This man turned his whole business. He didn't give it to his kids. He gave it to Leonard Leo and said, I need you. We got the Supreme Court with young justices who will control the support for it, to control this court. If as my great grandmother used to say, if they live and nothing happens, they'll be able to control the court for 30, 40 years. Um, so what are we to make of this? Because what do you make of this plan? Because I don't even know if we really understand how these people are coming together and they're controlling everything. The World Economic Forum said, you know what? You'll own nothing and you'll like it. And so now, if you notice, there are fewer and fewer cars on the road. Fewer and fewer Americans are owning homes. Now you see, you're not going to be able to really do comparative shopping with your groceries if this merger goes through, because 70% of the grocery stores will be owned by an entity. So you're going to pay whatever it is that they decide you're going to pay. I think that's dangerous, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. So let's back up. This is all controlled by dark money. Now they want to make it even darker because they want to be absolutely anonymous. What does it say to you that these people want to be anonymous? What difference in your world does that make?
Santita, first of all, this is so relevant and far too often is not talked about. People don't understand the implications of the Supreme Court decision in Citizens United. It is ushered in this wave of dark money that is controlling the political landscape in our country at the local, state, and federal level. Make no mistake about it. These are people who are millionaires and billionaires who are putting their thumb on the scale disproportionately, not one man, one vote, but to tunes of tens of millions and billions of dollars to influence the outcome of public policy in elections. JD Vance wouldn't be a United States senator if it wasn't for a billionaire almost single-handedly funding his campaign. That's a fact. And Citizens United has made it possible so that this dark money and these billionaires, there's no more campaign finance limits. It is for a regular Joe in terms of, for a campaign, but now because of Citizens United, you can have these independent expenditures and this dark money, unlimited spending that can now they can go buy an election. And don't think these people aren't influenced by these billionaires that are funding their campaigns. And they're telling them, they're writing the rules, the Leonard Leos, they're writing the Heritage Society. Project 2025 comes from the Heritage Society. Mm-hmm. These are the people that are writing the manuscript and the playbook for the Donald Trumps. And I'm going to be fair. This dark money isn't just limited to Republicans. It's dark money on the Democrat side as well. All of it is wrong. And because I know too many of my own colleagues who are influenced by this dark money. And so what I think, Santita, is that I support, and I'm happy that we just heard from Jim and his organization, because organizations like in Citizens United with Tiffany Mueller, I've been supportive of that because people need to this is terrible. And the Supreme Court, we're seeing, because we don't have this Supreme Court reform, we're seeing the influence of dark money even on the Supreme Court in Clarence Thomas. It's just coming out, but there's no reform. There's no real ethics. So
and Alito.
And Alito.
And their wives.
And their wives, absolutely.
I mean, how does that work? I mean,
there's no blind justice. There's no blind, this whole theory of Supreme Courts being blind. No, these people are influenced by this dark money. They're influenced by these millionaires and billionaires, these oligarchs, and it's corrupting our political system. That is what it's doing right now. It is It doesn't like why don't we have common sense gun reform legislation? Because even though we keep getting people killed and children and innocent people every day with these semi-automatic weapons, because the NRA and dark money puts campaign cash into politicians that are beholden to them, and they want to keep their positions, and they feel like if they must be hook sync with these organizations that fund them, or else they're going to be out of office. When APAC and other organizations can pour in tens of millions of dollars into a campaign, that influences elections. So yes, I think it's bad. I think it's ushered in a lot of bad policies, and
Mm.
a few people, millionaires and billionaires, are controlling a majority interest in our political discourse, and that is troubling.
Well, how does that play out in your space? Um, I mean,
I'll
when
tell you
you
how it
are,
plays out,
yeah,
Santita.
because because Texas
I'm
is,
gonna
I
give
mean,
you I'm gonna give
every
you an example. I'm
please,
gonna
because
tell you.
there's so much in Texas, but if you go to every state, America, what makes America so powerful is that every state could be a fully functioning republic.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And you've got oil down there, you've got brilliant medical research, people coming from all over the world to Texas. I just want people to see that, yeah, things are bigger in Texas and all of that, but there's so much money there.
Yes. And Santita, let me tell you right here, right now, just recently we saw Governor Abbott purge over 1 million people from the voter rolls. He did that.
What?
That is one, yeah, he just did it. He just purged over 1 million people. We believe a lot of voters that are going to be disenfranchised by this. Most of them are going to be communities of color. That is something that I've spoken out about as chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. There is a undue influence to get vouchers in that will gut many of our public school system because of the undue influence from these same people that are ushering in dark money to put so they can subsidize the wealthy going to private schools and gutting our neighborhood public schools. These are the same people that no matter how many deaths we've had from we had Uvalde. You heard one of the mothers speak at the DNC about her daughter being killed. There's no gun reform legislation in Texas or some of these other states because of the undue influence of dark money and organizations that pour in this money that pay these unlimited amounts of campaign cash to these politicians. And they say, this is our position. We want you to do this. They actually write the bills. The Heritage Society and ALEC, another Republican think tank, and others, they're writing the bills that these governors and these legislators are putting their name behind and passing, no matter how detrimental it is to the people. So that is the problem we have, is that there's an undue influence that they have with the amount of campaign cash that they're putting into these campaigns. They say, look, if you don't do this, guess what? You're going to be out of here. We're going to put $1 million into your opponent, or we're going to put $5 million into your opponent. Then you're going to be out of office. So either you do this or else. That is why we need Supreme Court reform. That is why we need ethics reform. That is why we need to end Citizens United, to get rid of this dark money. There needs to be transparency in giving. There needs to be a way that people can understand where where these commercials are who they're being funded by. Because then we can look at it, oh, that's those evil guys that I don't agree with. I'm not going to support their position on this. But if you listen to the commercial, you don't know. I think there needs to be transparency so there can be more accountability.
We're talking with Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. We were just speaking with Jim Narakis of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. The latest edition of FAIR's newsletter shows you that dark money is getting even darker. They're now passing laws so that you will not know who the donors are. There are 50 mega donors who have come together and they have said publicly, we are funding this presidential campaign to the tune of $1.5 billion with a B dollars. Now we've already seen the danger of I mean, look, we all need money, but you know what? You keep telling me you need my vote. We've seen donors come in, and mind you, yeah, you're right. I Norman Solomon and Jeff Cohen 2 years ago with the Roots Action asked Joe Biden to step aside. People thought that they were being blasphemous. They said, no, you can see that there's been cognitive decline. It's not his age, it is his condition. He needs to move on. And if he wants to endorse Kamala Harris, he can, but he needs to get out of the way because we've got the primaries before us. Now we've gone through the primaries. 14 million people voted for Joe Biden, about a million uncommitted. All that was thrown out the window because the donors got scared after they saw this debate. Now, I'm not saying that they should not have been disturbed, but their votes should not mean more. Their money should not mean more than your vote.
That's right, Santita, you're spot on. But that's what we're seeing. We're starting to see where the money, and it shouldn't be. That's backwards, right? But I mean, I'm just going to be reality. I hate to give you platitudes and utopia when that's not the way it works. In the back room,
Well, how does it work?
let me tell you how it works. And this is the ugly part, the sausage you talked about and how it's made. When I'm with my colleagues, they know we know who the lobbyists are that are given the big campaign contributions from these. A lot of the time it's from dark money, and they're overly influenced by them. Even I've had some of them privately tell me, Ron, I think you're right. But I can't. I'm going to get primary. That's their whole concern. I'm going to get primary if I do this. I'm going to have this X group against me. They have a scorecard. Every vote I take even on amendments, they keep a scorecard so that I will be jeopardize my seat. And so we have very few statesmen that stand up to these mega donors and these special interest groups, these lobbyists, and these think tanks, the heritage societies, the Leonard Leos. We have very few of them. And so many of these judges and justices are bought and paid for. They don't rule on the law and the merits of the law. They find the result and then they justify it in their legal reasoning. That's how you came up with this nonsense of Trump or the president would have absolute immunity. That's how you end up coming up with Citizens United and ending the precedent of Roe versus Wade. It's because these Supreme Court justices are bought and paid for. And so we have to demand a change as a society. We can't become complacent and content or just think, well, that's just the way it is. There needs to be an uproar and an uprising, not in violence, but taking it to the polls, voting our values, and getting rid of these people that are controlled by special interests so that we can change the rules of engagement and get rid of this dark money. Because it's getting darker. And if we don't do anything about it, before long, it's going to be worse. It's a slippery slope. It starts here and it ends there. So they've opened the door, and now it is it's gone wild, to be quite frank with you.
It has gone wild. And many people assume when you hear about the Citizens United decision, because we just throw these terms out there, that this is just a Washington issue. But what you're telling me is that these people are aiming for the states. Could you state again why the states, to a Leonard Leo and to these mega donors and to these people who control this money, why the states are so important, the governorships?
Woo.
I mean, because, Governor Abbott, I was shocked to find that he's a member of the World Economic Forum. I said, oh, wait a minute. So what he's doing with these migrants, I got to look at this again, because if he were not a globalist, I'm not saying that you should be a nationalist in a bad way, but having national sovereignty is important, because with national sovereignty, my president and my governor, my state representatives, my state senators, they're answerable to me. If you globalize everything, it's the corporations, and you don't even know who they are.
That's
They're
right.
unelected heads of your life.
Santita, I'm going to remind people a history lesson. It was states' rights that had us with slavery, right? That was states' rights. And so when you have, uh, you should always be suspicious when these uh, folks are talking about states' rights, when they don't want federal oversight, they don't want federal scrutiny of the Justice Department. They don't want the federal oversight when it comes to voting protections. They want those to be eroded. That's why the Shelby case of the Supreme Court gutted key sections of the Voting Rights Act that your father and many others fought and gave everything for, ending voter suppression. We've seen a reversal of that. And now we're seeing a slippery slope of states' rights where states like Texas and Florida are disenfranchising communities of color, and there's no federal protection. Then we got a Supreme Court that is recalcitrant 6-3 to say, yeah, so what? That's why we need the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. That's why we need the Freedom to Vote Act passed. It has measures in there to end Citizens United, the Freedom to Vote Act. I want people to understand that legislation passed the Congress under Nancy Pelosi. The Congressional Black Caucus filed diligently for that. It died in the Senate because of the relic of the Jim Crow past of the filibuster. And Senator Joe Manchin and Senator Kristen Sinema out of Arizona said, no, we can't go along with that because we don't have 2/3 of the Senate that will vote for it. So we're not going to do it. So it's died. But we need that federal legislation. When we broke quorum, how you and I met, we were in DC begging these lawmakers for federal oversight so we wouldn't have the states' rights that Texas currently has to disenfranchise voters. Texas was the first state, even before the Supreme Court decision, to have this draconian abortion restrictions. And they didn't think it would stand. But then the Supreme Court, what did they do? They took away a woman's right to choose and said it's left to the states. So states' rights is dangerous, and if we're not careful, the states' rights will end up in what's known as Project 2025, where we no longer have many of the rights that we have today. So don't take it for granted. Don't think that just because we are in 2024 that there aren't people who are trying to take us back, because they are. I see it every single day in Texas. I see it when we ended diversity, equity, and inclusion. I saw it when they passed this nonsense of critical race theory where you couldn't talk about slavery no more in our textbooks. It's being eliminated. And then you see states like Florida where they ended African American studies, where we see the Supreme Court gutted race-based admissions in affirmative action. And now we see a decrease in African Americans and other minorities going to predominantly white institutions, Ivy League schools. Our numbers have dipped substantially. So yes, if we aren't careful, we're going to reverse many of the gains that have been made over the recent years.
But it seems like it's happening.
It is. Oh, it's happening right now. You see it on full display. It is frightening, Santita, and it's real. This is not hyperbolic statements. We're trying to get people frightened. This is real, y'all. This is real. I see it every day in Texas. We're about to get vouchers. We've seen the state take over the largest school district in the state, Houston Independent School District, and they're gutting our school, our Black and brown schools, because they don't give a damn. I mean, it's going to be real. Their kids can go to private schools and elite schools. So
wait a minute, that they use public funds to pay for.
Thank you. That part. Yes, that's what they want vouchers for. So they don't want to give a livable wage, even though they have record profits in oil and gas industry. Texas still, the minimum wage is still $7.25 because we don't have a livable wage in Texas, and they exploit migrant workers. And Black folks, they are exploited. And then we have voter suppression right now, where it's more difficult to vote and easier to get a gun, because right now we have permitless carry. We have open carry. You don't have to have a license to have a gun. You can be 18 and buy an assault weapon, a military style rifle right now in Texas legally. Purchase it, right? We don't have red flag laws. right? Because they don't want to stifle gun sales. It's more important to them to have more record profits for the gun manufacturers to sell more guns and ammunition so they can have more profits for their shareholders. That should be insulting to people. And so, yes, this platform, thank you, Santita, for letting us put this out so people can wake up of why elections matter, why it's so important that we go vote for people that are going to be willing to stand up for common sense values that we care about for our freedoms.
Well, and that's why you need the information, because you have to know which questions to ask.
That's right. That's right.
Because we don't know, many of us don't know what dark money is. We hear the terms bandied about. No shame in that. Now
Yeah.
you know. And
Yeah.
so now you can start asking questions about it, and you can start asking corporate media why they're protecting the those who have the dark money, because that's what they've been doing.
And
And
Santita, let me say something to that point. I just thought about it. A lot of times we spend our money with folks who are working against our interests. If dark money was revealed, we wouldn't shop at certain places that we shop. We wouldn't spend our money at places, we would be boycotting them. So therefore, that they wouldn't be enriched on the backs of our money that they're using to work against us. So that's why transparency is important. I want to know this person who's supporting these racist policies, these suppressive policies, these anti-freedom policies. Because guess what? I'm not going to shop at your restaurant or your establishments. I'm not going to spend my money to enrich you to work and weaponize against me. So that is why we need transparency and openness so that we can know who these people are. And we cannot support them. Many of them are probably getting richer based on the backs of Black and brown communities that they're kicking in the teeth every day with
and
these
poor white
dark
people.
money. And poor white people, oh God, I just got to say it, Santita, poor white people are voting against their own interests every day. These are the same people that they want access to health care, but they didn't want that Obamacare stuff, right? They didn't want that socialized medicine. These are the same people that don't have health care and health insurance and can't go get regular screenings. Black women, like you said, in Texas, lead in maternal deaths, and we're one of the richest states in the world, right? And oil and gas industry has had record profits, but they don't want to pay people a livable wage. They're exploiting our workers and getting richer on the backs of Black and brown people. And I mean, that's why we need to say enough is enough. And we need to make sure that wealthy people are paying their fair share in taxes and not have all these corporate loopholes. We're subsidizing them to get wealthier while the poor get poorer, the rich get richer, and the middle class shrinks. People can't afford homes. They can't afford inflation is real. And so we need to do better as a country to protect our vulnerable citizens, our elderly. A lot of these people are working up until they death because they can't afford to retire, right? Because of cost of goods and services and insurance, even teachers. It breaks my heart when teachers tell me that they can't afford to do much because they live on a fixed income, and with the rising cost of insurance and healthcare, that eats up a lot of their money on their retirement, right? And so a lot of them are having to work a second job at Walmart as greeters because they can't make it because of rising inflation and things like that. So yes, it's time to change the paradigm, and I hope that people will elect people that do more than just give rhetoric, but that actually make substantive changes from the bottom up, not the top down.
Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. That's why I wanted you here.
Yeah,
Because,
thank you for covering this because
well,
I don't hear enough people talking about dark money.
and no one's talking about it.
Nope,
Certainly corporate media are not talking about it.
not at
And
all.
they're shaping how we live. And you all don't worry about me. I am going to get my rest today. But
Yay.
but I've had walking pneumonia and didn't realize I had it. That's the danger of it. And I was very tired during the convention. And I would go, do my media work, and then I'd come home. One night I stayed because I saw a lot of people there who I'd seen in years, sometimes decades. But by Thursday, I wasn't feeling well. By Friday, I was ill.
Oh,
But I needed to get these shows, and I'm going to be recording a few more so that we'll have a show on Monday, show
yay.
on Tuesday, and I'm going to get some rest.
Get
But
some
in
rest.
the
Yeah,
meantime,
we need you. We need you more than ever. You are a beacon of light and a beacon of hope for me and a whole lot of darkness. So thank you for giving everything you give. You're amazing.
oh, you're amazing. And I thank you for making the time because I know that you're very busy. But um, uh, I appreciate your making the time because I know that you're very busy. And Lisa, I want to thank you for being part of the family here and for contributing. You said, I don't, I'm coming like in the middle of your comment about Black and brown communities do not want to rely on welfare. We want to fare well. You're right. And the fact is, the majority of people who are on welfare are white women.
Amen.
And yes,
Can I say something
I
real
got
quick?
1 minute. Yes.
The white women are the main ones who benefited from affirmative action. In minority
Are.
women business programs, I've seen the statistics when it comes to those disparity studies. Overwhelmingly, white women are the ones getting the contracts. Black people, Hispanic people, just a little
Right.
piece of the pie. White women, they are dominating. And a lot of times I've been told it's fronts for their white husbands to get the benefit from a side company that their wife has so that they get the benefit of a minority status. So white women are exploiting minority status, and they always talk about unqualified Black people. DEI didn't earn it. So hey, let's keep shining light on what's really taking place and
And
who's
let me
really
tell you something.
benefiting from affirmative action.
A DEI, we fought for it. I embrace it.
Me
Affirmative
too.
action, we fought for it. I
Thank
embrace it.
you.
We've got to correct a system that only allowed white men
Thank
to
you.
get in. So no, 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 no. And black people, look, let me tell you something, and people of color, and even women, when they call you a DEI hire, when they call
Thank
you an
you.
affirmative action hire, say, yes, you're right. Because the baseline for a DEI hire or an affirmative action hire is that you're qualified.
Thank
You
you.
would never go to Yale, as George W. Bush did, and laugh as he's getting an honorary doctorate and wondering how did I get in? Well, I know how you got in. You got in because of your legacy. I'm not
Yeah.
mad.
Thank
I'm
you.
not mad. I'm just saying to you, don't play games with me,
Oh, they
young.
didn't want to change that from the Supreme Court. You can still account for legacy.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah.
so,
How
come
about that?
on.
Yeah.
So
Hey, how
everybody,
about
yeah,
Santita? How about this for DI? Definitely earned it.
definitely. Boom. Mic drop on that. Definitely
Yeah.
earned it. How about that? Now
Yeah.
you now run and tell that, and everybody like
Thank
and
you.
share this show. Share it, share it, share it, share it, share it. And I want to thank our new viewers because many of you say you prefer being on in the afternoon. I like being on in the morning, but you know what? I had to move the show to the afternoons this week because because I needed to sleep in the morning because I'm trying to get my health back together. But if you prefer the afternoons, would you please let me know? Go to Twitter at Santita J. Let me know. Or go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page and slip into my DMs. I've been surprised at some of the people who've been slipping into my DMs. Oh
Ooh.
my gosh. I didn't know that was such a thing, really, but it is. Okay. Look, I'm an old fuddy duddy. So I'm like, I, you know, whatever. But I mean, I'm flattered, but I'm like, I don't, you're in space. I don't know you. Like, that's okay. Just, who are you? I don't know. But I love you all. I so appreciate you prefer the afternoon. Shadow, you okay. Do you all appreciate that? You all like the afternoon, everybody? Okay. Well, if let me know. You say anytime is okay with you. I love you. I love you. I
Oh,
love all y'all. So just let us know. But tomorrow's gonna be on in the afternoon as well because I've got to get my rest. But you know what? I want to thank you, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, because you know what? I had him in the last hour. I said I just need you for a few minutes, but I thought you would find what
I
uh,
did.
Jim Narakis had to say
I did.
compelling. And you
Thank
know
you.
what? We're going to keep to continue because in another couple of weeks, Vigilantes Inc. Greg Palace movie is coming out. We're going to be having showings all over the country to talk about that, so you can see how they didn't just purge 1 million voters in Texas; they're
Yeah.
purging millions across the country. I hope it's not good. You go to vote.org. check right now to make sure that you are still registered to vote. Love you, Ashley.
Check your
Love
status.
you, AW. Love you, Desmond. Love you, Lisa. Love you, Bernadette. Love you, Andre. Love you, Desmond. Shadow Star Ace. Love you. I love all y'all and everybody. Please, Robert, Kenneth, D. Ray. Love you. Love you. Love you. Love you. I love you, everybody. Ashley down in Memphis. And I just thank you for being part of the family. You make it worthwhile every day. I don't care how tired I am. It makes me feel so good that we can be together. What did Carol Burnett used to say? I'm so glad we've had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. It seems we just get started, but before we know it, comes a time we have to say so long. Love you, everybody. God bless you and be a blessing to somebody.